got caught in a wreck this past weekend and ended up getting the rear shoved into the bottom of the seat and broke a couple of vertebrae. I'm still here standing there talking about it. You can't take a moving person at 80 miles an hour and hit a wall and dead stop without having some type of natural reaction.
You know, we do what we can with our cars a lot, but we're more concerned with trying to go fast than we are safety.
We're all guilty of it. When you're in a pinch, you're like, that'll be all right. We'll get through the night, and sometimes that doesn't get you through the night.
Ladies and gentlemen, you wanted it, you got it. The place for the untold, real, raw, and juicy stories of dirt track racing. It's Dirt Track Confessions. And now here's your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney.
Welcome, everyone. I am your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney, and today we are here with my father and my brother, Billy Pauch Sr. and Billy Pauch Jr., and after some unfortunate circumstances, actually last week, it was my brother's idea to come on with today's topic. So, Billy, if you can shine some light on exactly what recently happened.
I want to hear you say Mandee Pauch Mahaney 5 times really fast without getting your tongue tied, because that is about the biggest tongue twier I've ever seen in my life.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk about racing safety and the fears of what you come about and what comes about in racing and what can happen, because it could happen at any time. It could happen going down the road. You never know what it could make. Got caught in a wreck this past weekend and ended up getting the rear shoved into the bottom of the seat and broke a couple of vertebrae. I'm still here standing there talking about it, drinking a water. Don't worry, there's nothing cosmetic alcohol in this thing, so can't mix the drugs, but we thought it'd be a great topic of conversation to discuss today. And right time, right place. I don't know. Hopefully it's, I don't know. I think Mandy's making money off my accidents.
I am. Sorry. Oh, so, I mean, between the both of you, I would definitely say you guys have had your fair share of accidents. Now, for you, Billy, I would have thought for sure your wreck, I think it was 2 years ago at Port Royal, would have been worse. But I know you have your opinion on what is very likely what possibly could have caused his fractured vertebrae. So what do you think?
No matter what you do, it's how you hit. You know, you can hit a certain way and be fine. The way I look at things like that is a dead stop is always what you end up getting hurt with, because you can't take a moving person at 80 miles an hour and hit a wall and dead stop without having some type of natural reaction. Those are the ones that scare you worse than if you keep flying, unless you're getting hit by something in the air or something that's moving. But the dead stops really, really do you in, and getting through that is what hurt. And once, as Dave Queer, the sports doctor, kind of told me last night, if something's in motion, the first natural reaction to hit is when your whole body's going to go forward, and then it's going to come compress, and something's got to give. And what happens when it gives, usually if you ever read, we get complacent in racing. So if you read, that's what happened to Kevin Swindell when sprint cars, they all come down, they were landing straight down on the bottom of their seat, and coming down and then compressing everything. Mm-hmm. So they built a bunch of stuff, and I try to run what you can, but then when you get into certain things, you get into modified, you say, well, this can't happen as much. Well, it still can. It's just what kicks to you and when it happens. And I think that's the biggest thing that you got to take out is, okay, yes, for like whatever shit can happen. It's just how that thing, how it flows and how it happened. To me, when it came down, it's that first initial thing. Something's got to take the brush, whether you have padding or not. I got a couple opinions from people on what makes sense. And just when everything come through you, it just squeezes your whole body and it goes to the weakest point. And the weakest point at that point, it was your vertebrae, I think. So, I don't know, maybe I got the other blessing. He's got short back and stuff. I got the long back. I think that's really what makes it a worse probably too. Maybe a shorter person might not have took it as bad. I don't know. You don't know how that would have played out.
What's your take?
I really didn't know what happened. I watched the accident and stuff, and he got hit until he showed me a picture of the seat where the rear actually drove into the seat. I thought maybe he just got hit, and the impact of the hit drove him against the back of the seat and broke his back. But it was the rear coming up into the seat because it actually caved the seat in on the bottom. The center section, you're only about far away from the seat, and it goes up and down. It's fine, but when somebody drives it and it breaks, I guess it broke the radius rods, the pick arm, and shoved it up into his back, and that's what caved the seat in and hurt his back. But padding never hurts. I mean, they make a crash pad for the sprint cars, but that's basically when you come down on all four wheels. Like last year, I pulled a coilover part getting into one through the whip-de-doos at Bridgeport, and it actually went up, and when it went up, it pulled the shock apart, and everything flew apart. And when I came down on the frame, and like he'll tell you, man, it knocks the air right out of you. And when you come down hard and solid, it just pounded me into the seat. But I'm pretty good with a lot of padding in my seat and stuff, and it kind of helped me through it. My back was sore for a few days, but it could have been a lot worse. And it's just it's like everything. You can get away with a lot, but certain times you hit the right way and you don't get away with it. You don't walk away, or they carry you away. A long time ago, running indoors, I got to be friends with Teddy Christopher and looking at his cars and stuff. And, man, he wrapped everything in padding and roll bars and this and that. And I'm like, man, you're pretty anal. I mean, we're indoors here. We're not going that fast. He says, padding's cheap, bones are expensive, and at the time it takes you to mend, and you maybe have a problem the rest of your life. I think Louis Ciccone crashed indoors, which I didn't think we were going that fast, yeah. And I think that pretty much ended his career. He messed up his back or neck or something, and I crashed indoors, and I've got the picture of it. I'm strapped in the car, and I don't know what happened, but I got in the wall hard. And, they're little cars, and my head's next to the steering wheel, stretched out that far. I didn't have a Hans on, and it stretched out that far. And it's amazing, even being indoors, not thinking you're going that fast, but when you hit and that abrupt stop, that's what hurts you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is the stoppage of something is how it stops. I mean, Port Royal, I hit, but I kept going. That got out. But what always happens is, and I know that way is, if you get into anything, and I think he's the same way. Kind of got it from him, a little claustrophobic and stuff. This is the one big thing. Everyone talks about race cars, your safety, you worry about things. I can't stand being stuck in a race car. Whatever it is, I want out. No matter what. When you get in an accident, I always get out. Try to. That's it first started. Port Royal, when I got hit really hard, I made sure I got out. But then I got out and I got dizzy. Saturday night when I got hit, I knew I couldn't get my breath back. But I still got out, and I got down. Then once I got out, I went down on the ground. It always comes back to me. The biggest fear is being trapped in something. Years ago, we had a midget land on my hand in Indiana, and that was the worst freaky thing I've ever been to. Fire is what it is, but when I'm trapped, I don't like that. I need out. And I'll usually try to get out, even probably when I shouldn't move, but I try to get out to at least get my bearings to make sure everyone knows I'm kind of still around. And that's the one thing entrapment in anything is my biggest fear of anything I do.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. Yeah. I mean, we got into these containment seats about 15 years ago, and I wasn't sure how I was going to take to them, being an old dog and used to my ways and stuff. But they're probably one of the best things that come out in the last 20 years. We used to have just a seat that kind of wrapped around your ribs here. You had a headrest. Some guys even ran side rests and stuff. I never really did because I could hold my head up. But it ain't so much holding your head up. It's just getting, T-bone from the side and you getting whiplashed and stuff or breaking your neck. But the containment seats they've got, it comes up on your shoulders on both sides. And when you're steering, it kind of takes it off your ribs. So when you do crash, your shoulder takes a lot of it. It used to be just your ribs was the only thing that took a crash, and you end up bruising or breaking your ribs, and that kind of hurt. But the containment seats, and up top here they come out where you can still see side to side, but if you're in a sideways crash or something, at least there's something there to hold your head, keep it from breaking your neck. And I wouldn't drive a car without one. I mean, I started out with next to nothing, a fiberglass seat with a
open face helmet,
with a chicken screen for a headrest and open faced helmet. And back then we didn't run gloves or. We had to run fire suits. That's just when fire suits became mandatory. But
it's impressive you made it out of that era.
I mean, I had a hard time just converting to gloves when we had to start wearing gloves. And I'd go out on the track and take them off, put them in my seat, and race barehanded because that was what I was used to. And until the inspector see me and said you can't do that, you know. So they were watching me, and it was the same thing with the Hans device. I had a very hard time adapting to that. I'm just claustrophobic. I don't wear jewelry, gloves, rings, or nothing, and I just don't like stuff around my neck. And it was very hard with the Hans. And what's the one I do run?
Oh God,
The body one.
the body one.
I don't know what you call that.
It's
Next gen or no?
Hybrid.
Simpson hybrid.
Hybrid, yeah. And that kind of straps onto you. It doesn't seem as confining, you know. And the biggest fear of a race car driver is, you know, you get killed, you know. But I don't want to burn to death.
No.
You know, I don't want to be stuck in a car and can't get out and burn to death. That's the worst fear of any race car driver. Is not you getting burned in a race car and putting all the stuff on and getting in there. It takes so long now to get strapped into a car, putting this on, putting that on, and it's like, geez, it wasn't like that in the old days. It took me, you know, 10 seconds. I had the belts on. I'm ready to go. But now you got to put all this stuff on. You're in a containment seat. And it's just a different world, but it's a lot safer, but it's still dangerous.
Absolutely. Now, I was talking with Mike the other day. You guys might better explain it, but he was saying how I think Troyer had it originally and Bignell just came out with it where the seatbelts loop over in the back. It's now adjusted.
Yeah, so actually he brought that up on my new car. They brought it so you can adjust seatbelts. It's something, you know, it's really specifically when you start to see these 11, 12-year-old kids coming to the dirt modified world because your seats are such in different worlds, you know? Mm-hmm. So now you can adjust your seatbelts. So really when you look at seatbelts, right, you want your shoulder, you want it to wrap around perfectly right around your shoulder because you want it to be straight out and down. A lot of people don't look at that. Sometimes you pull yourself down. Sometimes you're not right. It's tough to get some things right because we never had the adjustability when we mounted the seats. But I think that's huge to it, you know, and getting your seatbelts mounted so it comes right across the back of your shoulder is technically how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the worst thing is you have your seatbelts come up and are too low. Like he says, they have to be over a bar, come over and over your shoulders to hold you down. You don't want them coming up on a low bar, coming up to your shoulders like that because it lets you come ahead in the car. And that's what happened to me in the sprint car in the late 90s there. It was a new car, and I thought they mounted the seat the right way, and it was probably my own fault for not checking it. But the bar was too low, and the seat belts came over the bar, went up and through the seat, and I flipped real hard getting in the third turn, and the car come down on the nose, and the belts being not over my shoulder this way, the seat pulled ahead in the car, and it drove my knee into the steering box, and I shattered my kneecap, and that's why it's very important to have your belts mounted correctly. And now they have adjustability. It was like, usually I'll tell them where I want the bar in my car because, you know, I'm not growing. I'm not a little kid. I'm going to grow. I'm already there, you know. So you pretty much stay at the same height. So I knew where my seat bar needed to be, but now they have an adjustable one, which is good because, you know, a lot of people don't have capabilities of welding bars in their car.
Well, exactly. So you look at anything, and I think this has been talked about a lot. Safety in anything you do happens from stuff that happens over there. I mean, if you look at the 80s, what was it, Richie Evans and Jer Zombach got killed with the boosters were falling down in the carburetors. They started tying them up there. The early 2000s when Earnhardt got killed, Petty, all them, that's when they brought in the neck devices, the Hans devices. That brought into the full containment seats. You know, in the dirt modified world, there's a local guy here, Brian Kerr, who unfortunately lost part of his leg when the drive shaft got kicked off. They made us run loops from there on out. If you look at the new dirt big blocks, there's an actual bar when the seat back cars, because Larry White flipped one time at Brewerton and took the boat and bowed it down like a ton. Unfortunately, safety innovates as things happen. Usually we're not pre on top of that. It's just things that we're reactive to. I think the biggest thing nowadays I see is it's big in sprint car worlds. They're mounting their seats to like trying to make a rubber impact so that rubber takes a little bit more of the impact when it comes down to absorb some of the shock. I seen that in shout out to what's that Speedway Illustrated that I get? They did a nice article on that the other month. So it's just making sure you got the right things at the right time and being a little proactive as we talk about things, you know. What's the best neck device there, you know? What makes the most sense, you know, your Hans or your something else there, you know?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I mean, you've definitely been through plenty of different injuries throughout the time. Do you feel since then things have obviously improved, but are there still things that you feel could use some tweaking?
You see my old car, right? I still have my 76 Sportsman car. You get in that thing, I feel like Fred Flintstone. It's like things are leaps and bounds since then. That was 1976, and where we're at today, things are way ahead of that. I mean, but they always progress. They always get better, but, we do what we can with our cars a lot, but we're more concerned with trying to go fast than we are safety.
Yep.
But safety's part of it too, because you get hurt, you sit out for months, you're done. It's like we had all planned to go to Texas and Louisiana and do that, Bridgeport and everything, and his year's over.
You're done.
It's done. And I spent many injuries when I busted my knee one time, my other knee another time, and you sit out for a month, and it's painful. Number one, and number two, you miss valuable time in your life that you could be racing or doing something better than sitting in a chair trying to mend bones. So
what you doing?
Things stepped up a lot. Like I said, it seemed like in the 2000s there when Earnhardt got killed and Kenny
Irwin.
And Adam Petty.
Yep, that's when it really changed.
Everybody started stepping up and saying, this ain't right. We need to do something. NASCAR come out with soft walls. They come out with the head and neck restraint, containment seats, and they really stepped it up. And that kind of trickles down into our race, and then we pick up on it too and makes us safer too. But sometimes the track's got to look at their situations too,
Absolutely.
Look at Greg Hodnett getting killed at Susquehanna because the gate opening shouldn't have been that way, and it's just I go to racetracks and look at certain things and it's like, man, that's not safe. And a lot of times the promoter, he don't want to hear it, or fix it, like just throw a uke tire in front of that or something, just something to soften it up a little bit or something. It's like they built the fence a lot higher at Fonda since I started racing there.
Oh, yeah.
There used to be a pretty short fence, and you went over that and into a deep river.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know, I'm pretty sure, was it Hagerstown? You told Freddie Raymer once that he'd end up in the...
No, that was Fonda.
Was it Fonda? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we went there running sprint cars, and Fred likes to play head games all the time, These cars are too fast, they're too light, they're dangerous. So I got to play a little bit back to him. So we're up Fonda there and we're talking. I said, look, see that backstretch there? There's a deep river on the other side. But whatever you do, don't go in that river. You'll drown in one of these cars, And we raced, and I ended up rolling around him down the backstretch because he wouldn't go up no further in the middle of the track.
That's awesome.
Little did he know.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is when you look around at tracks is safety. I was probably one of the most known tracks in the country a while ago and hurt myself. Not bad, but nothing. There was no ambulance. Here comes a guy on the back of a pickup truck, gave me a Percocet and
that's when we were out in Indiana, right?
Yeah, I'm not trying to say the name here and throw them under there. But they gave me a Percocet and an ice pack and said, hey, here you go. I went to a track down in South Carolina where I think the ambulance was from 1962. Didn't think it moved. Then we're right in this year. I'm telling you, I'm going down the backstretch of one of these racetracks, and I never seen nothing like it. People leaning over the fences on the track.
Oh yeah,
that's a shady time, Then I was down at Florida there. They built stands going into one at Alltech, and they stuck people in there, but they didn't really put no fence to stop it. So I thought they were going to kill a bunch of them. It's not just anything. You got to look at where you sit sometimes in a racetrack and what makes sense.
Absolutely.
Seen some freaky accidents where sprint cars flipped out of places and modifieds there. You don't know what you're going to get into. I tend to believe, safety is a good thing in the sport, but the end of caution attracts people to sport. And that living on the edge is really what brings the drive to the fan too.
I mean, and you always preached, like, pay attention to your surroundings, where you stand in the turns and all that kind of stuff, because people think they're invincible until something happens.
Oh yeah, you don't. The worst place to stand at a racetrack is in the turn, because that's usually where the cars go over the fence and land on people. And Flemington was the prime example of that. It was a big circle, and the cars were always flying over the fence, or tires, or front axles, and a few people got killed there, and it was a dangerous place. And you got to watch where you're at, even as a fan. I mean, especially in the pits and stuff, cars come in and out, and guys are in a hurry changing tires, and so they're rushing in the pits, and you step out, you get run over. So
Yeah.
it's just like I'm sure I told both of you, when you're standing and they're working on a car and they're racing, they run the motor and stuff. Don't stand next to the motor, because if it blows, it'll blow out the side and hit
Blow
you.
out the side.
And don't stand in front of it, because if it falls in gear or something, it'll run over you. So
Just don't stand by it.
always stand off to the corner there. So if it blows, it goes that way. If it takes off, it goes that way. There's always a safe position, but nothing's for sure. But you just try to do the best you can.
Yeah, this could go into a whole new conversation.
Like a
being in
pet
the
peeve
pits.
pet peeve in my world. Do not, if you have air jacks, always put stands under them. The guy one time, the jack went down, boom, landed on the guy, knocked his 2 front teeth out there. So
Well, what's the new jack Mike uses that lifts
the
up?
late model one.
Yeah. Whoa. This was dangerous. Well, I don't know why, not put anyone in the bus, but this is when we first started using them a year or two ago. And for some reason, like 3 guys seemed to think that they needed to put the fuel in the car at the same time and stay on the back bumper. Mm-hmm. The car started going up on the front end, and that could have been ugly. Yeah.
It's like loading the Team 35 trailer. That's the sketchiest thing I've ever seen.
Easy.
Loading what?
The Mike Mahaney
that's
35 trailer with the hoist going up there.
Well, that's another thing is
Those chains break.
when people open trailer doors, don't stand underneath the doors. I mean, anything can happen, but really I think at the end of the day, this whole comes down to is just being very cautious. And really when it comes to drivers and tracks, most importantly, is don't skimp out on safety.
No, like I said, padding's cheap.
Yep.
Padding's cheap. And he was bad in that wreck there, but what really, could have been bad was HJ too, because Billy was up there and HJ kind of went under him a little bit, and he could tear your cage off. That's what happened to me in I think 1985. I got turned around and a guy come up over the top of the front of the car and tore the cage back to my head, knocked me out, and the steering come back, hit my knee. That was the first time I busted my knee. That's probably the first time I really got hurt bad, and it just. But I get nervous when guys are flipping and you're going under them or something, because they'll tear your cage off. It can happen. And I think the first time I really ever went to a hospital from a race car was Delaware, just like...
Yep, when you said that.
Good old Delaware.
It was with Tony Cecili's car. And I'm out there, I'm running third, and it's running hot. And I'm telling Tony, it's hot. And he's like, nah, go, keep going. You're running good. All right. So I went, and the top radiator hose blew off, and all the hot scalding water, like 240 degrees, 250, or maybe it was even hotter than that, 300 degrees, come back and went through the throttle hole and down my leg and scalded it. I had to go there and get that taken care of. And then after that, I kind of sealed that all off on the motor plate, so hot water couldn't come back through there again. And I'm big on sealing. I actually caulk around my motor plate and seal everything up, because number one, I don't want hot water or fire coming back from the motor when it blows up. That's number one. Number two, it keeps the driver a little cooler, and if you're cooler, you perform better. So the better you seal your firewall off. You look at, there's gaps between the motor plate and the roll cage, like a half inch on each side. All that hot air is coming back on you.
Yep.
And then if the motor blows up, all that fire is coming back on you. So seal everything up, and it just makes life a lot better for the driver and safety-wise. Do
you feel like there's certain things that you might take safety-wise that some others might not know about?
Yeah, padding. He's right on padding. So I don't know why I didn't have it in a couple of seats, but you always get on padding and high-density foam and stuff like that, and just double-checking to make sure you got everything, I think that's the whole key. It's really how you hit, but it's how you prepare for something like that. And just to make sure that you're around it in surroundings. I mean, it's like, where do you start? Do you is the Hans, what neck device is right? You go that way. You make sure you have the best suits. I think I have like a suit fish. I think I have like 12 suits, so don't even ask that. And I got a lot of underwear. So just be in safety and make sure you got what you got. And you're 100% proof with everything around there, and even kill switches and stuff. People sometimes don't even know who their kill switches work. So you'd be amazed sometimes, and we're all guilty of it. When you're in a pinch, you're like, that'll be all right. We'll get through the night, and sometimes that doesn't get you through the night.
Yeah. That's being young. You just jump in there. And
You just jump in there. You don't care.
You get older, you think about stuff, and it's like, okay, you're sitting in the seat. Your steering wheel needs to be in the right place. Seat needs to be set to where you're comfortable. Your belts are tight and everything. And when everything's right, you need to be able to just there's the kill switch. Boom, got it. Because when the throttle sticks, it's like it's scary. And you don't want to be like fumbling around for the kill switch. You want to know, boom, there it is. And everything's at fingers reach for you. You're strapped in. It's like I did driving school for years, and I tell guys when you're sitting in that staging area getting ready, make sure your helmet's latched. Yep. And now you got to make sure your hose is hooked on. That's something new. That's all in, and that your belt's locked. That your seatbelt you got it latched, because sometimes you don't latch it right, and it'll come undone if you start flipping. And it's just things you do. You're sitting there doing nothing anyway. Just make sure you're safe before you go out on the track. That your helmet's tight, your belts are tight, your Hans is tight, everything's good.
Well, that was just a few weeks ago. I think I texted you that when the car that Mike brought to the races. Trying not to throw anyone on the bus here too, but when we were going to the races, the car that he brought as like the main car, he thought he was done with that car for the season. So when we were going to Oswego, he stripped the seatbelts from that car. Well, we go out for hot laps, and guess what car didn't have the seatbelts?
The car is going out with.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. That's just a whole nother thing is tech. The officials, they can only tech so much, but some officials are more worried about teching the height of the body panels or X, Y, and Z. Well, what about the safety? Right. We did not have seatbelts. I mean, obviously that's our department, right? Our fault, but
first, safety's number one. They need to go in, make sure your seatbelts are up to date. They're mounted right, correctly over bars. Everything
up
in
to
there
date.
That the fuel shutoffs marked off and on, everything. So that's number one. Then you go to the stupid shit. The door's an inch higher. The roof's got a degree more angled.
Pushed out.
That's secondary. Safety's number one. That they check your helmet that it ain't from 1922 or something.
Did they have helmets?
Your suit's up to date. You got the right Hans. Everything's in date and stuff. That's number one. That's what they need to check first. Then they can go for the nitpicking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. No, he's 100% right on that. It's you just got to make sure everything's right, and your safety's good. I think that's number one. And actually, maybe I get David on over here. He can tell a story of he's raced a lot less than us. He walked into the room, so he just took a nasty one, knocked himself out, and spent a week and a half off work. So he can kind of walk you through that, because we do it all the time. But he's just kind of new to the sport, not new to the sport, but new to that part of it. So it might be a different take where we can give you 5-10 minutes of his theories for the people that might just be coming into it and what he learned. So
absolutely, David, would you like to step over?
So for those of you who don't know, actually, David is our cousin. I hate this, man. I don't want to go you as world famous for being the world's nasty sportsman wreck from Flo, but he was on there the other week.
Pretty good.
Just a roundabout tough deal. And if you look at what happened, what do you think could have been differently? Not throwing anybody under the bus, not going there. What would you have taken back and learned from that mistake? Like,
it was overall really tough. You have those initial reactions that might be a little overblown, but you look back and you can point at maybe the yellow could have been thrown, or that's the main thing to me is, there was just the car, from what I understood, was already it was who is it? I forget who.
Scott Hitchens.
Scott Hitchens, right? And the drive staff, I guess, had blown on his car in 3 and 4, and he was going slow for a while there, and could you argue the yellow was thrown? But you could also say that the walls at Port Royal are so tall, it's kind of tough to see. And then I was watching your guys featured on 3 and 4, and you really can't see down the front straightaway with the fence. So it's a tough track for that. But I could also look at my end of it, and I started third, and by lap 25 I was running 12th, and I hit the wall. And to be honest, I probably should have just called it a race after that, because when I came back on the track, I wasn't really that fast. But you could point fingers, but it's really not worth it. So I look back and say I was impressed because as soon as I got out of the car, the ambulance was already parked there. The safety people were already there. So it's tough. I mean,
Did it knock you out?
When I initially hit the ground, because when I hit, it spun me. My nose was towards the wall. I could see the wall. Then when the cage was actually the first thing that hit the ground, I went black for about not even a second. Like I might have closed my eyes, I might not have, but I went black for a second there. But by the time I had landed, I was awake and I was surprised with a fire coming out of my hood. So I didn't really have the time to sit there and gather myself. I kind of had to go. So and then the official had to help me get out because I didn't realize my cage had bent, kind of blocking my exit. Yep. So it was really, I wouldn't say it was scary because I think as race car drivers, you sign up for that. I mean, every time you get in a race car, what happened to you at Georgetown, something could happen.
Something could happen anytime.
It's the risk you take. So, I mean, everyone knows that we could destroy a lot of equipment, get hurt. I mean, you never know what could happen. So it was just you guys were talking about safety before, and I look at it and everything did its job. I mean, I took probably every neck impact angle you could take. My neck was not really that sore after the second day, and that probably has a lot to do with me being 22. But I was body-wise.
But it messed your vision up.
Yes, I got out of the car, and my left eye was really bad. And actually, my girlfriend noticed about a week, not a week later, but a little while later, that I popped 3 blood vessels in my eye. Okay. That just tells you how hard of a hit that it was. And you look at my helmet. Actually, it's just you kind of think it hit the cage, but I don't really know how it got the mark on it. But it scratched it. It did. It definitely raised some eyebrows, and you don't really know how hard of a hit you took because it's not like I got knocked out cold on the track and loaded to the hospital. Yeah. But so it was just it was a really it makes you it opens up your eyes and reminds yourself that what am I?
You take stuff for granted, so you can drive straight at a wall 120 miles an hour, at least me, not even think about it. But when you know something happens, it takes you back. It's the biggest thing I took out of it is obviously your safety and whatnot. And I just really appreciate all the people that sometimes will reach out to check on you. You goes a long way. Sometimes you miss, and I'll be the full disclosure. I think I had 780 text messages and way more calls than I can imagine. So I got back to who I could. That I can, but I think that makes you feel part of something, and it makes you think you're here. I take racing as seriously as it can be. Anything can happen at any time. I've seen people get killed working on trailers. I've seen people get killed going down the races. I've seen people killed racing. It can happen. You take your best precautions. You do what you can. I mean, it was his first ever flip, wreck, and he's been running for 6 years. It was my first ambulance ride in 20 years. So, am I upset it happened? Does it suck? Yes, but 20 years of one ambulance ride, I got to be blessed that I'm that far into my career, and that's where I've ended it. God, I hope I don't want to sound like that old NASCAR driver is going to be on podcasts again here because I'm out of concussions and stuff. But I'm still got some more years left in me, so we're good to go. So you're just amazing, and the whole point of this conversation was just to keep your eye on it, explain some of the things that we've seen over the years and seen what can happen. And look, I mean, his car looked nastier than mine, to be honest with you. Yep. But his hit cage first. Mine was the sudden stop. He actually, what I think saved David was when he hit him, he kept going forward. It's when you hit a wall at dead speed and stop, you watch any test dummy, that's when your whole body tries to crumble, and that's what happened.
Yeah, actually, the whole deal. I kind of knew. I didn't actually see a video until Sunday, and but just based off of when Mandee, you told me that it was the fractures in your back. I kind of you knew it was from Eric Almirola a few years ago at I think it was Kansas. He had the same thing happen, but what happened was the car, it went up like that and came the rear something in the rear broke, and he actually just landed straight on the frame, and all that impact went straight to his back, which fractured his vertebrae. And I think your case is one of those things where it's how do we prevent that?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, what if you look at what your wreck was? What do you think saved you?
I actually think a couple of things. I think actually it was a good thing that the cage, like everyone looks at the cage as such a bad thing that it caved in like that. I think that's a great thing because that takes force out of that takes a lot of impact out that you would feel.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Like look at the NASCARs now. They don't bend. So guys are getting concussions all over the place.
Correct.
So you want your stuff to cave in, like obviously not cave in and crush
Yeah.
you, but that's a question. Like you can't make these cars too stiff, and you got to make them give.
So if I look at it, what really saved you was you turn left at the last minute. If you would have hit him dead square on, you'd be hurt way worse than you are. That left reaction if you watch it and you see the video, guys, he turned left, it caught his right front to his left rear, ripped the whole right side out of it, and it sent him forward. If it would have been a dead stop, I'm sure Scotty Hitchens would have been really hurt, and David would have been worse. That's the kind of the way I look at that part.
A couple of years ago, I think it was at Middletown. I think it was C.G. Morey.
Yes.
When when it was Dusty or whatnot, he went. I think he went under somebody. Exactly, basically what would have happened. And because I actually had a couple people say, "Why didn't you just square him up?" I was like, that would have been the worst thing I could have done because I'm very aware of the C.G. Morey thing and who in the right mind. We were probably doing like 9,500 miles an hour down Port Royal. Who in the right mind is not going to try to avoid it in the first place?
Well, exactly, 100%.
So,
but that's what really, I think, helped looking back at your accident.
And the initial impact wasn't bad because it was actually my right rear tire, and it obviously has air in it. So there was almost no impact at all because of the air and whatnot. It was just I got really lucky, I think, and the fact that I was running in the back probably helped me too.
There's all kinds of stories to it,
because I could have gotten hit by somebody else while I was flipping. So you look back at it and you just realize how lucky you are, and you move on.
Wow.
I'm with you. I thought that was a pretty good conversation for.
Yeah, I think we nailed it. I'd
Dirty
say
Bits.
Dirty Bits.
Like
Dirt Track Confessions.
No, it's Dirty Bits.
Oh, Dirty Bits? Oh, boy, you're renaming
Britney
those.
Spears, Dirty Bits.
Oh, boy. All right, well, our producer over here, he's telling us that we're done. BP3.
Yes. I got one question for you guys before we get off of here. Not really for you guys, but if you could put in the comments what you should start your 7-year-old out with, a Hans, a hybrid, or what kind of device you should really start them out with. Because I've always ran a Hans, but I'm not saying that's the right either.
Yeah. What everyone, like the majority of people race right now.
The majority of people, it makes sense.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being on and joining us for our episode. Biggest takeaway I would say is definitely don't skimp out on safety.
Yep. Don't pick on skimp. Don't skimp on safety. Do what you got to do. You only got one brain and only one back, and
you got one body.
Don't screw it up.
You got it. Well, thank you guys. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure to share this on all your social media outlets. I'm going to work on a good ending here, guys. Yeah, so until then.
I'm still saying Britney Spears, Dirty Bits.
Oh, boy. He's singing it. All right.
Out, guys.
Take it away, Billy.
Don't know. Out of here. Peace.
See you guys.